I think we're live.
We're live.
Yep.
Are we live? Welcome, very welcome to Broadsheet on the Telly. My name is John Preposterous Ryan. You're very welcome to our 50th show. A big welcome to all Broadsheet readers and commenters and everybody who follows the show. Big welcome also to Johnny Keenan, who has returned with us in Kilkenny. Hello, Johnny.
How are you, John? How's it going?
Happy 50th.
Happy 50th, brother.
Neil Curran in Dublin, in the regulation Broadsheet on the Telly blue shirt.
The John Ryan blue shirt.
And Vanessa Foran, also in Dublin, but from originally from Cork. Happy 50th, Vanessa.
Well, it's not my 50th, but I'm only a blow-in in recent times, so I'm just, the gate crasher.
How many shows have you done, Vanessa, do you think?
I didn't count. I'm sure somebody else has.
Probably feels like 50, Vanessa. Probably feels like
50.
It doesn't actually.
So we're going to have cake and surprise guests later, and also Olga's going to come in and she's in town.
Olga's going to come out of the cake at about 11 o'clock. After her shift, she'll come in.
I hope she's buying the cake.
So I thought Johnny was going to bring this. So nobody's got cake then, okay?
I've got crumbs, John.
It's Lent, Johnny. It's Lent, lads. There's no cake.
Not yet. It's not Lent yet.
Okay. So happy birthday to everybody. Happy 50 shows. We started in last March, was it? Or late February?
I think it was.
Johnny, were you on the first show with us?
I was. Yeah. It was mid-February.
It was mid-February. Okay. So it's almost a year. So it's terrific, right?
Yeah, it's great. Been an uneventful year.
Yeah.
And it's going to be an extremely eventful year. Vanessa, that's Cheddar Man behind you, isn't it?
That's Cheddar Man, yeah.
Why was he behind you?
He's behind me. I think it's been the story. I think it's been the story of the week for me. The fact that they found him and they were able to get the DNA from the body that they found in Cheddar Gorge, and they always assumed he was white. And the sample that they got, the DNA sample, was like the full gamut of testing they could do it. It was such a good sample of DNA, and they've discovered he is that exactly dark skinned. The oldest population in the UK that colonized Britain was that black, with that exact hair type and blue eyes. Amazing. And they came from North Africa. They came as the ice melted 40,000 years ago, and as the ice melted, they made their way over a land bridge, and so this 10% of British people are descended from Cheddar Man. So that means 90% of the population are descended from more recent immigrants.
Yes.
So it sort of puts Nigel Farage and all that gang, puts manners on them, really.
It's a Chexit.
Chexit. Yeah.
Is the I have to say he looks a very, very nice fellow, doesn't he? The Cheddar Man. He's very sweet looking.
Yeah, no, he's dead about 10,000 years, so they were there.
He didn't have a nice ending either.
Well, do you know what the scientist who broke down the DNA was saying? I was fascinated by this on Channel 4 did a very good interview on it. But when it wasn't so much the fact that this man was black and clearly North African, was that the DNA sample was such a good quality. They were able to test. This was the least of the things they were able to find out about him. Discovered that they'd no tolerance for alcohol or dairy.
Really? Wow.
And they suspect that they survived so long in that
diets
environment.
Back then, isn't that terrible?
From what?
Gluten-free diets back then.
Yeah, but they figured out that they survived that long because of their diet.
Their diet being what? kind of berries and things.
Berries, everything above ground, you know, berries, yeah, meat. Yeah.
That's and
No starch.
no starch, and they couldn't drink booze. They were bad.
But they'd no tolerance for it, so it obviously didn't evolve for them.
Well, it's funny because the Irish and the Brits, we don't have much tolerance for alcohol. You know, I mean, that is a thing, isn't it?
Absolutely.
There's a joke in there somewhere.
There is somewhere, yeah. But the thing is that, you know, for the likes of Katie and Nigel and all those extremists, they are from more recent immigrants than Cheddarman's descendants.
Yeah.
So the idea that British is white is a complete fallacy. Fallacy. And I thought it was the story of the week, with iRexit and that meeting at the weekend. And
did the Cheddarman make it to Ireland at all? No.
Well, they didn't. The scientists aren't saying that, but they're not saying he didn't either. Maybe. But they walked. You see, this was like just post Ice Age, so they walked to Britain. They were nomadic, and they made their way eventually to Britain across Europe. But you know, years and years ago, somebody told me I had more. My genetics would have more in common with an African than it would from someone from Grana Braher.
Really?
Yeah, and it's actually now true.
What? Oh, right. But just on that basis, rather than anything in your family, no.
I don't know, but I remember the thing was laughing and it was funny. But like, there's the proof now that actually the earliest inhabitants, certainly on in Great Britain, were nomadic tribes from North Africa.
Maybe Great Britain could join the African Union.
Maybe. Well, I mean, they've kept Katie over there. Katie.
Who is Katie?
Katie Hopkins.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
She had a horse tranquilizer, and she was arrested for being racist in South Africa, which is I'm sure pretty difficult actually.
Well, she was arrested for racist remarks, though, wasn't she? Not for having ketamine.
Oh no, she collapsed after taking a horse tranquilizer. Well, you tried taking one.
Well, somebody must have told her it was something else.
No, it's
Why would you take a horse tranquilizer?
It's a popular drug, isn't it, Johnny?
Apparently so.
The ketamine.
Yeah. I don't know, John. Maybe it's time to get down off your high horse now.
No, I mentioned because you were in Kilkenny with horses, and I thought you might be aware of the distribution.
Yeah, we're outside the pale. Tayshaw is actually on it tonight.
Johnny, you were down in Cork with Richie, who wrote the song about Liverpool.
Richie, the legend, yes.
How many views has that got now?
I heard 20. Well, I thought it was 20 million, but apparently it's 100 million if you take in everything, all the websites that it was shared, because it was a massive sporting phenomenon. It wasn't just about Liverpool. It was just one of those songs, and there'd be lads in the chipper after coming back from the nightclub, and they'd upload their own version of the event, and then you had babes.net doing a little dance and everything, and yeah, everyone just kind of embraced it in their own unique way. But
so he might have the most he might have the most downloaded single of the year, certainly for an Irish person. No,
I without a shadow of a doubt. And some people are even saying like it's probably more well known than Horse Outside. Keep with the horse team. So you want to see what he's got coming next. I can't really say.
Yeah.
But it's going to be massive. The guy he understands where he is. You know, the 15 seconds of fame and all that Andy Warhol kind of thing. But you know, Richie's been around for a long while, and this is just something that's happened to him. So how he can go from strength to strength on the back of it, I think, is going to be massive. And
yeah,
he's a lot more than a comedian. He's a serious artist. So that's why I like him. You know,
like the whole the Cork persona is like that's a persona, isn't it? I mean,
yeah, it's all persona.
It's all persona. Like, what what's
we
his?
put it all on. We're just all actors.
Yeah. But Johnny, will that character develop the
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely. Well, he's got this character for a few more projects, I suppose, and then he's talking about something else with another character. So he's always developing characters, you know.
Where did you meet him, Johnny?
I'm in UCC 7 years ago when I was on tour with Howard Marks, and I met a few guys that had a SSDP, Student for Sensible Drugs Policy. So there was a group of the guys. Richie studied finance, and there was a few other. Graham, remember Graham was on from Electric Picnic.
Oh yeah.
Graham was also part of that, and you're talking about 10 guys that from all different walks of life and studied different courses at UCC, but all really interesting and serious guys.
And Richie,
so that's where I met Richie.
Yeah, Richie's based in Amsterdam.
That's right. Right. He went over there and he actually studied animation, and he was doing. And he's a fantastic singer, songwriter in his own right. You know, he was in a band before he took the leap to comedy, parody comedy. He was a serious musician, songwriter. So and he busks quite regularly. And so when he was doing the animation and he got his qualification from that, he just said, "I'm going to really go in at the comedy angle now and see if I can make it clear." So we're working on that for a few years.
And Johnny, from the Liverpool song, will he make any money from that? I mean, from YouTube?
I don't know.
You don't, yeah.
I think it's very hard to make money in relation to YouTube and Spotify. If there is money there, it's more from an advert kind of.
I think if you're getting millions of hits, I think you can make quite a bit of money. But is he getting gigs out of it?
Oh, he's a busy boy. He's talking to a few agencies, so it's looking like he'll probably be. I don't know. I don't want to be standing ahead for him, but you know, I think everything revolves around London. You know, in relation to the entertainment sector. So there's a lot of big guys looking to get his. John Hancock.
He hasn't had the obligatory late show appearance, no?
He was on Ray Darcy.
Oh, he's on Ray Darcy. Of course he was. Yeah. Sorry. Sorry.
So, but you know, Cork is always, as we know, Vanessa will verify this, has always been the center of the universe. But now with the Young Offenders, you know, the film, they have their series as well, which is on BBC. So I think, you know, when the light is shone on a city or a place for anything, you know, it usually opens it up in relation to other people within that area. So I think Richie is in the right place at the right time, and you know, it's brilliant, as I say. You know, so I was delighted to meet him.
I
was really delighted to meet him, and he didn't have much time, but you know, he actually went out of his way to meet me, and because he was shooting his video, you know, there was a few scenes that they had to shoot because that's going to be out, I think, in the next week or two.
That's fantastic.
So we'll be talking about it, I'd say.
Great. And do the Liverpool fans will they continue doing that song? I mean, has it entered the kind of cop?
Yeah, absolutely. It has entered the Liverpool psyche, right? The song itself is about Salah, Mustafa Salah, who's obviously a Muslim, judged by the name. Is that being a bit facetious to think that? I think most Muslims are called Muhammad, no?
Well,
but anyway, okay. So I don't want to anticipate that he is Muslim, but his name is Mustafa Salah. He's from Egypt, and he's Liverpool's main man. And so Richie, as he wrote the song, and that's his favorite player. So Spurs they played Spurs last Sunday. Spurs is my team, and it was 2-2. Salah scored 2 goals. So I think obviously Richie is a lucky mascot for Salah, because whenever Richie shows up, Salah plays. And he got his photo taken with him. And as I said, I was just with him for 10 minutes. He was giving me more time, but he's compromising. So I said, listen, man, do whatever you have to do. And I'm actually going down next Wednesday. He's doing a gig in UCC, an afternoon gig. So I said that'll be massive, you know, back in his old alma mater. But he's 10 minutes. So within those 10 minutes in a pub in Cork, I'd say he must have got his photo taken by randomers just coming over about 8 times. That's within 10 minutes.
Wow.
So And then I drove into the car, and everyone was walking past him. Is that him? Is that him? You know.
No.
And I says, Richie, you're known everywhere. He says, yeah. I says, I can't go anywhere in Liverpool. You know.
Incredible.
So Liverpool have really embraced him as one of their own as well. And the Cork attitude is like, oh, there he is, yeah. Oh, your man, fair play to you, and all that, you know.
Yeah,
So,
but then behind his back, he's probably a langer. Like,
No. There's your man now. He's so and so, or he's your one's girlfriend or boyfriend. It's lovely about his connection.
yeah, well, he's
It's very everything is in his stride anyway. You know, I mean this, but it couldn't have happened to a nicer guy because he is grounded and he's sincere, and yeah, it's just great.
And will Liverpool sell Salah now though?
I doubt it.
Yeah.
Nothing. Well, you don't know, these football teams aren't run by the fans anymore. They're run by corporates, so you know, it's hard to know.
Yeah.
Is Liverpool your team, Johnny?
No, it's Spurs.
I'm a Spurs man from my sins. Vanessa, 1981, I remember it was the Milk Cup final. Now the League Cup final.
Is that Terry Venables? Was he
Terry
manager?
Venables was manager, yeah. In 1991, when we won our last FA Cup final, himself in Gaza.
Mm-hmm.
See but Spurs were playing Liverpool in 1981 Milk Cup final, and myself and my brother were having what I suppose would be a row. And my mother turned on the television and said, "Look at the football," and he was Liverpool. I says, I'm up for the Reds. I says, I'm up for the Whites. So he's been a Liverpool fan ever since, and I've been a Spurs fan ever since. So he's got a little bit more to shout about, but you know, when you're a fan, you're a fan. Spurs have always played great football. That's what
They always do well on an uneven year, isn't it? Or
yeah. It's lucky for Spurs when the year in the one. Yeah. I thought you know your stuff, man. Here's one for you. I reckon, and they're playing Juventus next Tuesday. If they can get over Juventus, I think they'd be a good tip for the Champions League. So there's a.
Okay.
You heard it here first on BS TV.
Vanessa, regarding football or soccer, as you probably know it,
The foreign game, John.
You would support the team that was doing really popular at that time. So you can sort of age people by this team that they like. There were a lot of Leeds fans who are, you know, around mid-50s now.
John, I have no idea what you're talking about.
I do. My brother's one of them, John.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us who do you support a soccer team, John?
Well, I supported Manchester United, and I have to say that I supported them when they were in the second division in 1974. So, but
I was a Man U supporter as well, John. Now I didn't exist in 1974, but when I came along on this planet, they were in the first division, but they were shite.
Yeah. Well, I stopped supporting them when they became the kind of mass Hitler Youth Manchester. You know, this sort of Red Army. You know,
Well, they always were the Red Army now, in fairness.
well, they were kind of Red Devils in my book. You know, they're like
The Red Devils, the Red Devils, that's true.
Here's one for you, John. My father was a Man United supporter as well, but he lived in Manchester, and he was there when Busby's Babes came home. Remember the plane crash?
Yeah.
And Munich is an acronym. You know what it is around Manchester? It's Manchester United never intended coming home.
God almighty.
Now you're into dodgy territory there.
Well, so you've got
No, but I don't mean it like that. You know what I mean? That was just an acronym at the time. And it was, you know, I'm not making light of what happened. Okay, so you understand that, right? Right.
No, God no.
That's the thing with football, not with Johnny, but with football. The how do you say it? The uncouth part of football in a lot of the songs and the stadium rhymes makes for a very unpleasant game. It's not very British. Not very British though.
Yeah,
I don't know what they are anymore.
Well, you know,
I agree with you there, Neil, on that point. And just bringing it back to Richie for 1 sec. Like, he wrote a song about Salah, which is an Egyptian guy, a Muslim, probably, we'll say it. And then there's Mane, who's a Senegalese guy. And I don't know the third guy, where he's from. But when you can imagine, like, and I think I touched on this before, that these guys are from a different country and they're not used to the culture. But when you have a whole stadium singing their name, that's kind of, you know, it's I take exactly your point, Neil, that there used to be an awful lot of racist chants in football, but I think because it's become more family friendly, they're being eased out slowly, but it's still a problem, with no doubt.
Yeah,
that other sports don't have.
yeah. I mean, at GAA matches, you wouldn't hear about the ref's wife and stuff, would you, Vanessa, and all that? And
Very rare.
I remember your man Jason. What was his name? He was the sexy Dublin player.
J.O.
He's still very active in the game, and we had the O'Halpines in Cork, and they were, since they were very young, since they were like, under 12s, under 13s, under 14s, and people were very proud of them. It doesn't. The only time you would hear that now is like Lee Chin might have made shite of a fella, and his crowd behind the net might be saying something a bit snotty, but it would be just directed that way rather than being specifically racist.
Yeah.
No, but I used to always say we were always racist here, because you were always a Kerry tramp and a Tipperary knacker and a Mead. I won't repeat it because they give out to me for saying what I could say about Mead.
Mead? What?
Yeah, what's Mead?
It's very bold.
Mead what?
Yeah, it's the 50th show. You have permission.
You have permission. Yeah.
No, he won't.
The C word.
No, but I've always said, we were always like that, and I used to kind of think, well, I'm from Cork, so I'm, more superior than the rest of you. But that that was a kind of a GA thing, loyal, loud, and proud. But the sort of racism you would have seen in soccer, no, that wouldn't. And you know what? It would never have been tolerated either. In the clubs, they were far more likely to tolerate abuse against women than they would against a lad,
Yeah, I mean, but
or if you were a soccer player and a rugby player, they would take more action quicker.
Jason Sherlock did get a lot of abuse, didn't he? Neil?
Yeah, I can remember even from the Dublin stand, he'd get a lot of abuse.
Well, he might have been playing for Cork at the time because he played his underage for Cork.
No, he was playing for Dublin. I can remember back when I did.
I had to get that in.
But
well, maybe he did, but I suppose, to be fair, the Dublin fan has always been very different to the rest of the
racist
country. I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that at all.
The Dublin fan, you're right. A Dublin fan is a more
the Dublin fan has always been very different. They were always late for matches. Or the first time they played outside Dublin in 100 years, they got lost on the way down to Thurles.
So they don't know the rules and stuff. Or they kind of come in half dressed, and is that what happens?
The fans wouldn't be in the stadium, which would be going live to television, so they'd have to hold off for an hour to get them out of the pubs.
Oh my God!
That was a big issue. That was a big issue up until about 3 or 4 years ago.
And all the country people wanted to be on the telly, so they got in early.
Vanessa's point
we'd be all there eating our sandwiches in the stands, giving out about the Dubs. Would they ever get out of the pub?
Yeah, but there was a point there that the Dubs didn't turn up, and the game was delayed. So it was a piss take to everyone. And there was also, you remember this, Vanessa, a league final, I think, Dublin and Cork in the 80s, and
Cork didn't turn.
It was extra time. It went to extra time as far as Cork were concerned, that the replay should be back down in Cork. So they didn't turn out for the second half, and the ref threw up the ball, and there was no Cork team, and then Barney Rock scored what was the winner. And so that was kind of interesting, the Cork crowd have always kind of went up against the hierarchy, which is Dublin basically, because they have the most fans and they give the most money.
What did you say there? Dublin have the most what?
Most fans.
Most
fans. So therefore, they've
got the most fickle fans.
Okay,
they're all there now that they're winning. You look at the numbers of the Dublin turnout 10 years ago. Or you go to a hurling match 10 years ago when Dublin were playing, you'd count the number of Dub supporters that would fill a bus. That would be the height of it.
It's
Hey, you
Dublin
can't take
hurling.
an amateur. It's an amateur
No,
sport. You can't take it serious.
I know.
You want to have faith in a proper sport, like one that's
Like what? Like what? League of Ireland?
like cricket.
Swimming?
I know. Vanessa,
Cricket's the biggest game in the world.
Cricket is?
Ireland has a team.
Well, because India has a billion population.
We beat the Brits, so...
it's India. Yeah, India and Pakistan would be like
50 shows in, and we're talking about football, soccer, and cricket. There you go. Time travel. Go back in time and tell John Ryan that's what we'll be talking about in episode 50.
And John's a Man United fan.
Well, I'm not a fan.
Busted.
No, it was Tommy Docherty was the manager, and they kind of seemed like a really wild bunch. They were like a boy band gone wrong. Stevie Coppell and Gordon Hill and
Sammy McIlroy,
and just anyway, there two wingers as well. Two outside wingers, no? Okay.
Come here, John, did you ever play soccer?
No, just on the road.
Remember you had the rugby thing.
Transfer from rugby to soccer.
I'd get kicked out of the club.
No.
Oh, do you know what, John? I think I solved the issue about the Rock guys and the Michaels guys being much bigger than you and being much hairier than you.
So for those who
when you came back to school after the summer holidays.
steroids.
Steroids.
No. Do you know what I think? I think they were all in prep schools, and they might have only started school at 6. So they were all, or maybe they were kept back a year. So they were all a year or two older than you. So when you were still 13, 14, they were really 16, 17.
Okay. Well, we were playing against them, a sort of smaller version of them, like a year earlier, and then we basically they were middle-aged men,
No, but that's what I'm telling you. I reckon they were either kept back, so they were actually a year older than you thought, or that they didn't start school till 5 or 6. Whereas I started school at 3. You probably started school same as the year I did, or maybe the year after.
So you're August, are you, Vanessa? Your birthday.
I'm gonna read out some of the.
Listen, Johnny, they're all dying for me to talk about birthdays and age and all the rest of it, and it's knock it off.
No, I see. When you said you started school at 3, I'm thinking your birthday is probably in August. No,
well, we used to start school in June, July, and go back in.
It's before our
September.
time, Johnny. Back that Ireland was a different place back then, Johnny. We wouldn't be able to comprehend that Ireland that Vanessa's talking about.
Neil,
John would understand that.
Neil, before we get on to serious matters, and because it's our 50th show, do you want to tell us some of the highlights of the weekend's viewing and movies and whatnot?
Oh, we'll go entertainment already. Oh, this must mean it's a bumper week. Yeah, well, actually, there's a good few films coming out, and there's a lot happening in the entertainment world. But the big film of the week has a lot in common with Broadsheet tonight, because 50 Shades Freed is out.
Oh,
It's a chance for the couples, the women and the horny couples of Ireland to go to the movies and canoodle at the back row. Go into that cinema in Rathmines with the double seat and go watch this if it's on. And basically, it's just filth.
What is
Shouldn't be
it?
on our screens.
Oh,
It's just horny people into BDSM, and there's probably some moral undertone. But I read some of the first book, and when it kept going on about unwrapping the silver foil to describe taking a condom out, I was losing me horn during it. But anyway, it's a phenomenon. It's a phenomenon now, and this is a bazillion film. It's making Michael Bay look like a talented filmmaker. It's like
so are
Marvel
they all
now.
from the one book?
Well, there's 3 or 4 books. I don't know what's going on in this one, but I presume it's the same girl and the same guy, and they're just finding more places to have sex in. The
guy is Irish,
whips and chains,
isn't he?
Which makes it worse. He's no self-respect for his acting career. Look at the trailer. It's him with his top off.
Neil,
Well, I'll have a bit of that. What's his name?
Neil, this is the third sequel to 50 Shades, is it?
The third sequel to the 4th film. I've lost track. It's the 3rd film, I think. I know very little about it. I presume Jamie Doran is the lad.
Yeah.
Vanessa probably knows. And it doesn't matter how bad the film is, it's going to do incredibly well. And,
I'm going to check to make sure he's age appropriate now before we start drooling.
And
Jamie Doran.
is this Vanessa? 1 second, Neil. Is this a Valentine's Day thing?
Well, I don't know about you. Sex any day of the year would work for most people, but they'll tie it in with Valentine's Day, I guess, because there is a cardboard thing. Yeah, but I guess love is in the air. But none of the other films that are out have love as a theme. Well, actually, that's not true. Nearly all the other films that are out. So that's 50 Shades Freed. If any of the commentators go see it.
50 Shades. What are you saying? 50 Shades
Freed.
Freed. What is that?
Yeah. I guess it's like we're now going to express our sexuality in a more open way in this film. Perhaps we'll,
as opposed to
leave the lights on or something.
As opposed to the whipping and the
all that kind of malarkey. So that's that. Go see that if you have nothing else to do.
Well, actually, I'll tell you, he's from Hollywood, County Down, and his nationality is, what do you think?
Oh,
British.
Because he's doing well, it's British, but when he gets busted or whatever,
he'd be one of us.
Like the golfer, isn't it? He's up there as well. McIlroy, he's from around that neck of the woods, I think.
Oh, he's the Irish again.
Well, no, Rory McIlroy doesn't want to get involved in the whole Irish English thing. He's kind of said that in interviews before.
Yeah,
so it's kind of
well, he took the Paddy's money when he was an academy player. All right, he was Irish then.
Well, at least it's an amateur sport, though. It's professional sport.
What's the second one?
So there's two true stories out this week. First one, Clint Eastwood directs. It's the 1517 to Paris, and it's basically about a couple of Americans who are on holiday in Europe and they foil a terrorist attacks, and it's kind of about their lives and how it came back. It's getting pretty kind of averagey reviews. And I'm sure there's a lot of red, white, and blue flag waving in it, but I know kind of little about it. Clint Eastwood feels like he's long. He's very, very old now. He must be in his 80s, and he's still going from a filmmaking perspective, and he's still producing the goods as well in terms of the quality of what he does. So that's one. The other true story is
I have to say, Neil, sorry, Invictus, the film that Clint Eastwood did with Matt Damon about Nelson Mandela was just terrible.
Yeah. I didn't see it.
I mean, sometimes he just throws out just awful product, but.
Yeah, well, he's a profitable filmmaker though. He comes in, under budget and his films turn a profit. So I guess.
But he has made some great movies as well.
$1
Million Baby was made for.
Pittance.
I don't know what Neil earns, and
okay,
for what the GAA
great movie.
There's also a film, The Mercy, again a true story about Donald Crowhurst, which was a chap back in the 60s who wanted to sail around, or he wanted to take part in the round the world yacht race. Now, if you Google this guy, you'll kind of get an overview of what the film's about. Donald Crowhurst, and Colin Firth plays him, and it's getting slightly above average reviews. Rachel Weisz is in it as well. So they're the films are out this week, but the fun doesn't stop there though, John. So Super Bowl Sunday was on Sunday, which is what would happen if the GAA was a professional organization. Vanessa Steam's going over ears. But Super Bowl Sunday is known for the ads that play, and it's usually a time to see upcoming big hits. And the next Star Wars film, Han Solo, this Han Solo trailer, debuted at it to mixed reactions. There's a film site on YouTube, or film reviewers, whatever you want to call them, Red Letter Media they're called, and I actually remember years and years ago they went viral because they produced this 90-minute review of The Phantom Menace, and it was on Broadsheet at the time. But these guys recorded a satirical fan reaction video to the trailer, but they recorded it before the trailer came out, and then when the trailer came out they stuck the trailer into video and it's fabulous because they're actually narrating what's happening as it's happening. They kind of had worked out what would be in the trailer, and they hit the mark about 85% of the time. It's quite good. But yeah, Disney are kind of churning out these Star Wars films now. We're going to get them 1, maybe 2 a year. Who knows? It's kind of taken away the I guess the special feeling, the warmth feeling that Star Wars gives us inside.
And in terms of box office, is it diminishing returns?
Well, big numbers are big numbers. From what I'm reading from the analyst side, the markets aren't as impressed with the figures. They expected a bigger bang for their book. So while Disney are obviously making ridiculously criminal amounts of money for this, they're not making it at a level that the markets wanted, the investors wanted to see. And there's another conversation around why is that. They're making films for a generation of people like ourselves, but they're kind of messing with with the characters we grew up and knew and love, and the younger generations don't care about Han Solo, they don't care about Yoda, so making these retro films about them and messing with the lore as such, doesn't make much difference. So I'd say if Han Solo doesn't work out, it's really going to jeopardize the whole
franchise.
Well, not the franchise, but these spin-off movies. But it does raise the question because that lady from Game of Thrones who plays and who's in the I can't remember her name now, but they have a thing for brunette British female actors in these films. They show up, so there's a thing. Conspiracy theory. Anyway, and there was another film that debuted at the Super Bowl that I know Vanessa was watching on repeat on her own in the bathroom with the door closed, and it's a film starring Dwayne Johnson called Skyscraper, and it basically looks like Die Hard. But they keep making reference to the fact that it's about a skyscraper, and they talk about the skyscraper in the trailer, and they show plans of the skyscraper, and then terrorists come in. But he's going to take his shirt off, he'll have his guns on display, and he'll be a hero. And Vanessa has already booked her tickets.
You're coming with me.
The Rock.
Yeah, that's nothing better. After we go to 50 Shades, there was Jurassic Park. I had to the new Jurassic Park or Jurassic World trailer. But there was one interesting one was there was a trailer for the third Cloverfield film, the Cloverfield Paradox.
Oh, yeah.
And straight after the Super Bowl, that went live on Netflix, and it stars the Irishman Chris O'Dowd, who does call himself Irish. And it was a big pile of shite. Now, it's only had a few days.
He goes a bit more than that. He tells everyone he's from Roscommon.
There you go.
Yeah, but he does.
He doesn't say he's Irish. He says he's from Roscommon, boy.
What do you say, Johnny?
He does it with an American twang, though.
Well, in Molly's game, he had a terrible accent.
He's full on Irish in this now. It's in cringe almost because he's kind of a comic relief character in this. But he wears the tricolour on his NASA, or not his NASA, his spacesuit, which was kind of interesting to see. So they did acknowledge. At one point, someone else has to wear his clothes, and she has it on it. But it was a big pile of crap. It was an awful mess of a film. I wonder if it was being made and then halfway through they decide, hey, why don't we make this a Cloverfield film? Maybe that's how Abrams approached it. So it's very missable. It's probably why it went straight to Netflix. That's going to be the new thing now, straight to Netflix as opposed to straight to video. But there's going to be a fourth film then that comes out in October. We probably won't see the trailer till 2 weeks after it comes out and all that. But what it's about, no one knows. Oh, no, sorry, that's not true. It's going to be set in World War II. And I think they're trying to be very clever with these films, and it's not really working. But if you want to see a terrible comic relief Chris O'Dowd, go watch the Cloverfield Paradox. And you can get that on Netflix now, right? It's on Netflix. It's on Netflix, waiting for you to watch it. So yeah, lots of trailers and film things because of the Super Bowl. It's kind of that time of year. Yeah, I wanted to ask you. Oh, sorry, are you finishing? Yeah, that's the film world. I wanted to ask you the Black Panther, which is got 99% on Rotten Tomatoes, the movie site, which meant it was just one review. I saw that the Independent, what's his name? Guy called Ed Power on the Ed Power, yeah, in the Independent. And do you know it? I think he literally gave it the only bad review that it's got in a sort of print title.
Well,
Yeah,
what
I know.
does he know? What does he know that none of the 99 other reviewers don't know?
Well, I do think that for an American audience, the obviously the civil or the racial themes, are revolutionary, aren't they? For Marvel, for comic book stuff, Neil, isn't it?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of pressure on Marvel to get this one right. And now I do have friends who have seen it. They're in the entertainment game in the States, and they seen it, and they were impressed by it. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, action superhero films tend to be all about the action and that. So I don't know if his comments were tongue in cheek about it not being an action film for a superhero film. But I guess I haven't seen it, so I can't pass comment. But yeah, it seems a lot of the reviews focus on what the film represents. There's a lot of that in it. So there is it's our.
Well, why can't a movie just be a bit of crack for 2 hours instead of
Well,
having
this,
to
the,
Well,
be important?
super-
It's a Marvel
to be fair,
movie.
well, the comic
To-
book
well,
field
to be
is very
fair-
is considered quite a white-only domain, isn't it?
Yeah.
Why
But to be
can't it
fair
just be
now.
a-
Well, to be fair to Marvel, and I'm not big on Marvel films, Thor Ragnarok, I watched that recently, and that was quite entertaining. That's the one with the Hulk, and it's in space. And when Guardians of the Galaxy came out, they were comic book stars that most people had never heard of. They were fairly kind of niche, and that film was a bit of a hit. Well, that was a huge hit, and that spawned a dreadful sequel. So, Marvel do pull it out of the bag every now and then, but superhero films can only go so far. And it's all about the cha-ching.
Neil, will you excuse me a second? I just want to say hello to Luke. Luke Brennan has just joined us. Luke,
Guys, can you hear me okay?
we can, yeah. Luke, you're in Portugal?
I am. I'm in Porto, yeah.
In Porto. How is it? You look very sunned.
Are you tanned?
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
You look
Sorry,
very.
are you all tanned, Luke?
Tanned and.
No, that's I think it must be relative to the orange jumper.
The lighting.
No,
I tell you,
it's,
the Wi-Fi is shit
yeah,
there
I mean,
anyway.
it's-
I don't know what Paddy Cosgrove was talking about.
yeah, well there you go. Yeah.
Lucky had
we
better.
already
Lucky
got
had
some-
better.
would,
Better signal last
We'll
week.
gladly compete with this.
Vanessa, allow Luke to speak. Luke, you went over to Portugal. You basically emigrated.
Yeah.
2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, about a month ago. So I live in Porto now, and so I've had 3 weeks of intensive Portuguese lessons. So I'm fluent at this stage, obviously. Just getting into it, enjoying it. So this evening I was at a painting class that I have over here. There's a nice group down the road. Actually, my mother is visiting at the moment, and my aunt, so my mum's actually going to give a ceramic demonstration with the art group that I'm doing the painting with next week. So I'm sort of straight into things here, and sort of I mean, Portugal's full of nice people, and warm, friendly, decent lot.
And you're teaching, Luke, there, are you? You're teaching.
No, I'm just taking part in a painting group. So we're very skilled painter from the Porto School of Art teaching us on Thursday nights. So I'm doing a bit of that. Like I said, learning Portuguese. But enjoying that sort of severing of the umbilical cord that happens when you move elsewhere, and sort of opening up, sort of different sort of the brain as much as anything else.
And looking back at Ireland now, is it a bit? Whoa, I'm glad to be out of it for a while, or.
Well, no, not really. I mean, I suppose one of the nice things about when you go away is sort of you forget the good things and the bad things, So I can't remember if I was pissed off about anything in Ireland. I can't remember what they were. So.
Do you find it a bit cheaper there, Luke? Luke?
After my mother and my aunt just went out for a meal there, and they got a meal with wine for €9.50.
Yeah.
For the pair of them or to eat?
No, each.
Jesus Christ.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Well, in fairness, you will get that down the country as well, in Offaly, places like that.
Would you get a meal with wine for $9.50 in Offaly? Where in Offaly are you eating?
Oh, well, in fairness, Offaly.
Listen, I haven't got paid to advertise these places, but when I do, I'll let you know, Vanessa.
Luke, can I ask you? Have you found that you're still following the Irish news, or did you just switch off from it?
Still following what, sorry?
Sorry, I was just asking. Did you? Since you've gone over there, have you drifted away from Irish news, or have you found yourself checking Facebook?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not on Facebook, but I check in with Broadsheet, every day because it's my favorite news source. But also, I have a look at sort of what's happening in the papers. I'm sort of generally interested in that. So I have less of an idea than when I'm at home, but I know what's going on.
Have you stayed in touch with the show? Were you watching the show since?
Oh yeah, every week. Yeah. No, really, genuinely, I would at least watch some of it every week. Yeah.
Luke, what's your position on Europe generally? I mean, would you be a pro-Brexit person or a pro-Arexit?
No, I'd be no. I mean, I'm pro-inclusiveness and togetherness, and I'm so that's both pro in terms of sort of not thinking Brexit or any other variation on it is a really good idea, and also thinking that there's just wonderful things that the EU have done for us, and I understand that there are problems, but why wouldn't there be? I mean, if they're trying to do some of the things are going to go wrong, I think sort of there's a huge amount of things that have been very positive about the EU, and very much enjoying them.
Yeah, well, we had an Arexit. How do you say it? How do you say
Irexit. Ire. Just think of Ire, John. Just think of Ire.
Irexit. We had a Brexit conference on last weekend here in Dublin, Luke.
I heard that. Yeah. I saw it.
And do you know, guys, I had tickets and I forgot to go.
Would you have gone, Vanessa?
Yeah, I would have. I just completely forgot about it. I don't know why. And I had it written in the diary and everything. Just didn't check the diary on a Friday night or Saturday morning. And I had the tickets. I'm really ticked off.
Yeah.
I got a lion.
You read the reports of what was being said? I mean, would you be a
Brexit? Yeah. Oh gosh, Jesus Christ, no. I mean, you're on the same side as John Waters and Farage. Jesus Christ. I'd swim to Europe before
But I have to say, I heard Farage on Marion Finucane on Saturday, and I was following the Twitter as well, and nothing he said seemed to correlate with what the people on Twitter were saying about him as such. I mean, not that he sounded reasonable. It did sound perfectly reasonable for us to look at ourselves and say, okay, what do we want? Do we want to be basically ruled by Germany, effectively, or do we want something maybe that Iceland have or Norway has?
How are we being ruled by Germany, out of curiosity?
Yeah.
No, I don't. I mean, effectively, because it's the money. It's all about the money, really. And Britain was a kind of a bulwark between. Germany is now dominant among the EU to an extent that it wasn't before Britain pulled out. So the balance of power has shifted towards Germany. And frankly, I only speak for myself, but I would rather go back to the common market and just stick to that, really. myself personally. And what I'm saying is about the Farage stuff, and you mentioned John Waters and all that. They seem to be like lightning rods for a lot of Twitter hate and all that. But underlying it is that kind of that Trump effect. If you completely dismiss these ideas and people's kind of
hang on,
Sure.
sorry, go on, Luke.
No, I was just saying that, but that's their game, right? Their game is to, sort of like try and pick out the most reasonable but sort of counter argument that there is against everything, and they know that that's going to sort of gather sort of maybe 30% of people, usually the most disaffected people, because it's it's anti anti a lot of stuff. And allows disenfranchised and angry people have
There's somewhere to go.
Somewhere to go, exactly. Yeah.
Well,
that's something to say as well.
But Johnny, your position on this in terms of Europe and stuff like that. But also, would you look upon Farage and people who support him as racist?
Well, Farage is married to a German woman for a start. So when he talks about immigrants, he should really look a little bit closer to home, because they're all the people that come in as immigrants are working no more than Luke in Portugal, So I kind of with the EU market or the movement of people, they're all very strong kind of things to be proud of and be positive about that Britain have lost now. So I'd hold back on an IRA exit or whatever way you pronounce it till I see how Britain got on, for example. I like the idea of a sovereign neutral state like Iceland have, and I think that's the best example that Ireland can look towards. But from a Euro perspective, what scares me is the EU army, which I highlighted a few times. I don't need to go back there again, but I'm interested in the pigs, what the Europe thrust upon us when the financial crisis was happening. And like the pigs is Portugal, Ireland, Greece, and Spain. So I think we're the scapegoats. I mean, you say Germany are the rulers of Europe. They are, I believe, and so are France, and so are the Netherlands. All the big colonial countries that have a colonial history are in control of Europe. We're just the lackeys. Ireland there. So if we leave Europe in the morning, I think that we could be. Sanctions is probably too strong of a term, but I think we would be kind of left out in the cold to a certain degree, and that would fuck up the economy to a certain degree. So we're getting quite a lot from Europe, but I think we're being controlled by them as well. And I always want the $64 billion question or euro question answered. Like, we don't have that money. Can we come to some kind of arrangement? Don't be saying we owe all this money to Europe. We just need to kind of deal with the situation of how Ireland can work within Europe, and then also keep an eye on how Britain get on outside of Europe, because eventually I think Europe will disband. And I know I'm going to be slated for this if World War III doesn't happen first, John. because that's a very serious thing that's happening, but no one wants to talk about that.
Well, actually, I agree with one thing you said there, Johnny. But first of all, the $64 billion question has gone up to €91 billion, because that's the cost in a leaked report of the potential cost to Britain if they don't get a deal on Brexit. That's what it'll cost our economy. But to your last point about a world war, I mean, if you look at history, economic crises actually have led to the beginnings of conflict in Europe and on the planet. So not everything you're saying there would be off the wall. But I coming back though to yourself and John on the point about Europe again, the comments feel flippant, but where is this evidence of all the harm and all this control that we are under as a sovereign nation, part of a collective of Europe?
Well, Neil, okay. It's that term mission creep. You don't know what's happening till it's happened. We joined a club that was just about trade. It then became about everything else. Every single aspect of our life is now pretty much controlled by Brussels.
Well, that's not true though. That's not true
No.
because
All our taxation is here.
yeah,
It's decided
And-
here.
we
Our
we
taxation,
have our constitution is still sovereign. It's still protected.
Mhm.
our budget is run through the Bundesbank. I promise you, like our sovereignty is not really doesn't really exist as such.
Well, if that's the case, we wouldn't have this big referendum coming up. Our constitution, everything in our constitution is our own business. It's not
Well,
Europe's
our
business.
neutrality isn't, Neil. Our neutrality isn't.
Well, that's fair enough. But have we ever acted like a neutral country in the last few decades, given some of the behavior that's gone on?
Yeah, but you just said about our constitution. Within our constitution, we are a neutral sovereign state. I know them in era. Yeah, in writing. But the same. But not a lot of people take it very seriously. For example, the people down in Shannon Watch, they set up in 2003, and I think it's a very important week as well in relation to, because 15 years ago, 100,000 people marched on Dublin to stop the invasion of Iraq, and those people that marched knew exactly why America and the Western allies were invading Iraq. It wasn't to help the Kurds or the Iraqi people. It was to get the oil and get rid of Saddam. So a dog with a hammer up his hole knew that. So 15 years later, it's terribly wrong to be proven right when over 1.5 million Iraqis were killed, and there's still an ongoing war in the Middle East, and there's people freezing down in Shannon tonight because they've been there 15 years trying to highlight it. So even though the neoliberal government doesn't acknowledge that Irish people want to remain neutral, the government does whatever it fucking wants. And with your man Pence down in Shannon there,
Well, there you just contradicted yourself.
No, I
There
didn't
now, the
contradict
government
myself.
does.
Go on.
You did. You just said the government does what it wants.
yeah, but the
Not Europe.
neutrality.
Germany isn't controlling us, or nobody is
No,
telling us what to do. You just said it.
No. Listen to me, Vanessa. Clearly, the government are doing what they want, aided and abetted by American government and the EU. Okay, is that clear enough?
Okay.
They're not doing what the Irish people want,
Yeah. No, it's okay, Johnny. No. I mean,
and I should be allowed to develop that point rather than just being cut across while I'm still in the middle of making it.
yeah, Johnny. Please, you've got the floor. You do, and
No, I've made it now. I've made it.
But
Okay,
I think
okay.
on that point, Johnny, I get what you're saying. I don't know if I think that's a choice that the Irish government is making of their own accord, as opposed to being told by Europe or Germany or the US that they have to do it. I mean, there was that recent thing where wasn't there arms? There was arms on a plane. Sorry, when I say arms, there was weapons on a plane. And one of the ministers did take that up, because that wasn't, they have to advise what their manifesto is, and that didn't happen. So there was some effort to kind of look for answers. But I mean, my view on this has always been, I'm less concerned with than maybe other people like yourself are. But at the same time, I've always felt that it's the Irish government calling the shots on that, and not the hand being forced by Europe or the US.
Okay, well, Mick Wallace and Claire Daly wants to investigate a plane, and they weren't allowed to. So there were two TDs that were voted in by the people, and they were actually, instead of being shown these planes, they were actually brought to court in Ennis. So it really is bizarre. In fairness, in relation to how.
First of all, the plane they were attempting to board was private property, as I understand, and they're elected by their constituents. When you refer to the people, who are you talking about?
I'm talking about the 100,000 people that would have marched in Dublin in 2003, the 15th of February. The million people in London, outside of Hyde Park, like 600 cities, had a massive protest.
But Claire
against the
Daly
war.
and Wallace don't represent those people. They represent their constituents.
No. They're government representatives. So
they're not government representatives.
They're TDs, no? They're members of the Irish government. No?
No. They're members of the House.
yeah.
They're
Okay,
elected TDs.
yeah. They're elected TDs. They're members of the House. You're right. Yeah, they're not in government. They're elected to be in the House. They're within the constituency. In actual fact, Mick Wallace makes a point about this. If you want Paris pump politics, don't vote for me.
Yeah.
If you want me to be a person of change in relation to legislation, vote for me. Claire Daly is the exact same. In actual fact, I was making a radio program in 2003, and I was recording the speeches And Claire Daly, I'd never heard of her before. I think she might have been a counsellor at the time, but she just really put everything in perspective about exactly what the situation was in the Middle East, exactly why 911 was being used as a declaration of war in the Middle East, and everyone was very informed in 2003, and 15 years later, and I'd like to think that someone might honour the anniversary of those protests, because I think that was the time things changed, when people thought that their voice mattered and getting on the streets. And as I said, 600 cities across the world, all over America, all over Britain, all over the Middle East, all over Europe, some parts of Africa. And they really believed that this was going to be bigger than Live Aid, that their voice would say, America, stop, you've no right going in to invade another country. But since then, look what's happened. Look what's happened. America are the bullies of the world, and people have become desensitized to war. So I'm saying, if we did something back then, but an awful lot of people did, Vanessa, and they still do. They're down in Shannon Watch. So Irish people essentially are very anti-war. It's the government that are making us seem like, and we're a target now. Varadkar and that government are making Ireland a target when we don't need to be. We can be that peaceful country. We can be the mediators in all this, John. That's what I believe. I really believe that. We don't have to go with the boys.
Yeah.
I know.
We don't have to go with the bullies. We don't have to side with the bullies. That's mine.
Okay. Yeah. Have we lost Finna? Okay. Have we lost Vanessa there? Sorry, I beg your pardon. Just getting back to the Europe thing, the characterization of the people who would be for a Brexit as racist. I see a real problem with that, Neil, in terms of the Trump effect. You know, anybody who voted for Trump was a racist or whatever, and it just was wrong, and it was insulting. And the more people did it, I mean, Dan Boyle has a column in today about Farage, and it's very tough and provocative, but it's also very, very damning of the people who were at that meeting. Now, the people at the meeting could have included, for instance, Vanessa. So, you know, are just people out of curiosity? Are people with a sincere belief that the EU project has gone out of control?
Well, just a couple of things. So I don't think anyone's ever said if you voted for Trump, you're racist. If clearly some of the comments and statements that Trump has made would not fall in the ideals of most people, sexism, racism, you know, but there's people out there that I've met that I don't agree with their views, but they voted him because they genuinely believed he was going to make a difference for their country. But with our exit, like, you've got to take a step back. When you look at the people who were shouting loudest from the hilltops, saying, "Look at this," and the mistakes they made on Brexit. I mean, Farage was grilled about this NHS, this big cash injection for the NHS that was going to happen if Brexit was voted for. It was voted for. He was asked about it, and he backpedaled. And this is the fella that you want to lead the IR exit campaign. But no, well, you don't have to be racist. You doesn't have to be racist to know that there's
I'm not suggesting Farage should be a figurehead for a Brexit or water.
But he is the figurehead for it. He's the only person who's harping on about it.
But Neil, all your objections to Brexit over the past 6 months has been financial,
economic.
Well, do you have anything other than economic reasons for staying in Europe?
Yeah, well, I mean, as a British citizen, if I felt, given the way privacy has gone in the UK, and now that Britain has left Europe or is leaving Europe, the autonomy around the decisions around human rights, well, I suppose it will be clearer when we know what the terms of Brexit are. But potentially those decisions will be made within Britain, and they haven't got the best track record there in terms of how privacy is being treated. I mean, that's another potential negative.
I'm kind of mystified. Luke, sorry.
I think that's actually the most significant, you know, the sort of the Brexit issue. That I mean, effectively, what a lot of, I mean, you could say senior conservatives, you know, a lot of sort of, you know, big idea of getting the ref off the field, and you know, like being able to, in an unregulated way, sort of, say the big
Luke,
just do
Luke, Luke, the connection. Luke, we've lost the connection on you there.
He can't hear us.
Yeah, Luke.
Just as well.
And you know what? He was going to make the best point to counter you, John, on technology.
He's back.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah,
I got you now.
Yeah, no, like just literally that this sort of economic imperative of the sort of the old money in England, like they want the ref off the field. That's why they don't like sort of the EU. They don't like regulation. They don't like the fact that they can't run riot over people's rights. And if we get Europe removed from the equation, that's what will happen in the UK. And I'd be very scared for people in the UK from that perspective.
but all these countries existed prior to the EU. I mean, Britain is a big liberal democracy. I mean, it's.
Is it really a liberal democracy?
Yeah.
I mean, that's another discussion, but I mean,
I guess I'm wearing the tinfoil hat now.
yeah,
Luke's kind of wearing the tinfoil hat then maybe as well.
Well, no. I mean, if you consider like prior to sort of how workers were treated in the UK prior to sort of the great right, it didn't have a great air.
Sorry.
I mean, that's not a good situation.
Yeah, I didn't hear you there, Luke. Sorry, just
Sorry,
there.
just that sort of like prior to joining the EU, the UK's workers' rights sort of record back then wasn't good, and if like of course people who want to exploit people want to go back to that situation.
Yeah, but it's almost as if we hadn't joined the EU, we wouldn't have had any kind of progress at all. If you listen to people, it's almost like we couldn't do this stuff on our own. We couldn't. What I was saying a few weeks ago about the European experience is a bit like the colonial experience of Britain, is that we become dependent, whether we like it or not. We become a dependent nation, and in terms of creativity, with so many sort of agricultural subsidies, it actually means that we don't sort of get our own SH1T together. Do you know what I mean? In terms of indigenous industries.
Yeah, well, I think that's quite a weak point, really. I mean, sort of having too much money thrown at you is one of the better problems you can have.
Well,
I don't think that's.
But it's hard to argue that with you, John, because we don't have a. How do we prove it's? We're not. There's no benchmark for that. We only know what Ireland was like prior to that, and we were still a young. We were 50 years old, 40 years old as a free state, as an independent nation.
Well,
but
look at the period since we entered Europe, right? The 80s, right up to about mid 90s, it was completely grim in Ireland. Yeah, we then had a period of steroid growth, a bit like the Blackrock rugby players at 12 or whatever, 12 and 13. And then we plunged into a lost decade that we've just come out of.
But we've also had some very innovative approaches to how to look for alternate how the economy is like. So, and this wasn't a Europe thing, but that the decision that was made around the IFSC and the lowering of corporation tax. I mean, Johnny mentioned the pigs the earlier, right? So if you look at the countries that were forced to take a bailout or a loan, really, which is what it was, look at how the other nations have fared, through the recession and have fared since then. And Ireland has I'm going to park the issue with the debt for the moment, because there is a question about the unfair treatment around it. But we have shown resilience, and we have turned a corner, and the economy is in some ways coming back and bouncing back. And we do have an industry in foreign
Yeah.
direct investments. You know,
You'd
that
have to
is an
say that
industry.
we're
in itself.
doing well.
But no, hang on one sec. What is the industry? Is
No,
it
I'm saying the industry of foreign direct investment, which is, like it
but
or not, that is an
skill
industry
level.
in itself.
But what is the skill level of that that industry? Is it it's basically call centers, isn't it?
No,
The FDI is apart from
no, no. I mean, American companies alone employ about 140,000 people in Ireland, and that's not all call centers. Well, call centers, I'd imagine, will be only a small percentage of that.
You do have the pharmaceutical industry as well as tech, you know, as
Yeah.
standard tech.
Okay. I think those industries will still be there if we were out of Europe. I don't see why they wouldn't be. In fact, our corporation tax would be copper bottomed, you know, in the sense that we wouldn't have to. It wouldn't be under threat from Europe, which it has been over the last few years.
I think Vanessa was sending Dwayne Johnson to bed there. Again, we can't prove or disprove that, but we can look at the arguments for the benefit of, like, these companies say that Ireland is an English-speaking country in Europe. You're using the euro. These are arguments that these companies put forward for, on top of the tax, why Ireland is a good country to do business in. We have a skilled labour force, and we do have some challenges around. That we've spoken about before on the show, but these are the arguments that we move forward by the organisations that are investing here. We've no way to disprove or prove that you're right or wrong should we take Europe out of the equation, John. But I can't see how it can be argued it's a bad thing. Would we have more investment in the country if we weren't part of Europe?
Well, I just want to get off the economic aspect of it, Neil. I mean, is there anything cultural that you feel separate from Europe?
Well,
I mean,
we still have the GAA.
Sorry, Luke.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, what wasn't Erasmus the brainchild of Peter Sutherland? I mean, like Erasmus, I bumped into like a young girl from Kildare, like on the street here in Porto, who's studying the music school, and sort of like I think that's a great sort of legacy that he had. That like the Erasmus program. there was an intern that was working with us there over the summer. He's now up in Holland. He's spending 9 months there. It's like, like these are again like great benefits of being part of the EU. That stuff wouldn't happen if you weren't part of it.
Okay. Well, certainly. I mean, the Erasmus program. Vanessa, you got a bit sort of upset there. What happened?
I wasn't upset at all. I just don't want shouting in my ear the same story I heard 10 shows ago. So.
Okay.
Anyway, what did you want to ask me?
Well, no, I just wanted to see if you were all right after that.
No, I wasn't upset. Okay. I don't throw tantrums and go off air.
Well, you did. You pulled your.
Oh, sorry. This is coming back to me, is it? Okay. No.
No.
I just took my cans off.
Yeah, but what was that? Come on, Vanessa. It's a 50th show,
Well, then go. Like, what are you asking me, John?
Are you okay? Are we
yes,
okay?
I'm fine. I don't throw tantrums.
Okay. Well,
so who does?
Nobody, Johnny. Really, nobody. Vanessa, what would you have said to Viraj on Saturday if you had been there at the Brexit conference?
I would said I thought you'd be taller.
Well, he had a lot of security around him as well. Would you say anything else? You wouldn't say anything else, Vanessa, no? I
can't think at the moment what I would say to him.
Okay.
I know from the profile of the audience, or most of them were just thick anyway. They're hardly going to set the world on fire. So
most of the audience are thick.
Disenfranchised people, that are just looking for an angle or something to folly or something to shout about.
Yeah.
That's what I understood from people that were there.
Well, that's what I go back to the Trump thing. That's exactly what they said about the Trump supporters. It's exactly what they said about the Brexit supporters before the Brexit and after the Brexit.
Well, you're potentially having an election this year, if not very early next year. And let's see all these Irexit candidates. Let's see them. But why aren't they? If you're that sure of it all, John, and everybody else, where are these candidates? Is John Walsh is going to run.
Well, I think that,
Most of
for
the
instance,
people there.
hang on, Vanessa, I'm not fighting with you here. I'm just saying that there's people who go to these conferences, you know, they go for a lot of reasons other than, you know, oh, I think Farage is great, or you know, Waters is brilliant. You know, they are looking at saying the sovereignty, our sovereignty just disappeared over the last 30 years or so. And I know that doesn't matter to people like Neil and Johnny and so on. The economic thing is the most dominant factor, but to a lot of people, you know, these are genuine concerns, and whether they're Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael voters, you know, they're not single issue people, but a Brexit would be a possibility, and particularly after Brexit, how are we going to cope when the EU punish Britain for stuff?
Hang on, let's be clear. Britain
What's that
punishing
got to-
themselves here. They voted to leave, not Europe.
Yeah, I
didn't
know,
they?
and they must be punished. They must be beaten to death. You know, they must be
yeah.
dragged around.
Germans and the French are loving this.
But I'm talking about like in 5-10 years' time. Do we join the EU in punishing Britain, some trade sanctions or issues like that? I mean, where do we
I
stand?
think we're giving this topic far too much time, John. I really do. I'm not even sure it's ever going to happen, to be honest. And I just think it's getting way too much time.
Okay.
Truthfully, because if you're that sure of Irexit being a thing, name one person that has said they're going to run as an independent, an Irexit candidate. Come on, where's all these, you know, people that turn up at these marches and all this and everything? Where are they? Name one person that has said they're going to run as a nationalist Irexit candidate. Has there been any?
No, hang on. I don't know what your point is. I think
it's a fair point, John.
I would
Yeah,
suggest,
but-
one second.
What's
Johnny,
If
Johnny,
you're not sure it's going to happen.
please. All I'm suggesting is that the people who are supporting a Brexit are not, you know, necessarily racist or, you know, disenfranchised. As you say, disenfranchised. They may be disenfranchised, and why shouldn't they have a voice, or why shouldn't they have an opinion? Why can't their opinion be heard?
Nobody is denying they're not entitled to be heard. There's plenty of opportunity now to make your point and broadcast it. Look at us here. This is available. Look at Johnny's friend Kevin. There's no.
But look how you characterize the people who went to the conference.
You shut me up 20 minutes ago to make floor for somebody else. So, you know.
No, Vanessa, no, that's an indirect accusation towards me. I'm not having it. But go on. I'm just picking up on it. But go on.
Well, that's actually not what I said, Johnny. So, like, if you came back on tonight just to shut me up again and start shouting over me, well, then there's really no point in me.
Vanessa, hang on.
Start this out,
How is it that how is it some people are allowed to speak and I'm not, John?
But Vanessa,
the minute I open my mouth, I'm interrupted and you say nothing.
That's not correct at all, Vanessa. You have a huge amount to say, and you say it every week.
I think it's
if it's a problem, lads, I don't mind vacating the seat at all.
Vanessa, there is no issue here as such with you at all.
But then can I finish what I was trying to say?
Of course.
Thank you. What I was saying is, if all these candidates, what you're thinking might be driving the Irexit, and everyone that, you know, that's not being heard, like the original Trump supporter, there was a lot more out there than was publicly recognised. I don't believe in Ireland that that's the case. Everyone gets a chance to make their voice heard in Ireland, even if it's just like as this guy Kevin in Cork, or this character Kevin in Cork, or a show like this. Nobody has come out and said they're thinking of running as an Irexit candidate, as an Irexit, an independent, or there's been no swell to form an Irexit party.
Yeah, but
I haven't heard any mention.
Okay, but just putting that aside, I haven't suggested that is actually happening. What I'm saying is that there are a lot of people who believe that who don't believe in the EU project in Ireland.
Well, most of the left politicians say it on a daily basis in the Dáil about how the EU is not such a good idea.
Yeah.
So that's the fact that's an answer to Vanessa's question.
I mean, Luke Flanagan. We get.
I actually didn't ask a question.
Did you not ask? There's no one that seems to be running independently on an Irexit
I just
mandate.
asked, where are they? Where are they?
Yeah,
you're
but
convinced it's all going to happen.
No, but what I'm saying to you is that most of the left politicians that debate every day in the Dáil usually have a negative thing to say about the way the EU is treating Ireland.
Name one recently.
Well, Mick Wallace, Claire Daly, Breda Smith, Catherine Doherty, anyone who's left, Vanessa, you know more, you know as much as me. So
sorry, are you saying they have been speaking an anti-EU line in the House?
Well, Richard Boyd Barrett.
Yeah, absolutely. People before profit, the solidarity. They would say that if it came to the choice, that they would prefer the EU to pull back, especially in relation to the army and such, that not many people want to talk about. And that's where Ireland are at the moment. They're part of the EU army. We had a post there on Broadsheet the other day about a Dutch soldier standing on a submarine in Cork Harbour, and everyone's decided to have a go at George Galloway. But the real elephant in the room is, what was the Dutch soldier standing on the submarine in Cork with a rifle? You know, that doesn't seem to be an issue for anyone. So that's the people that would be against that would be all the people that I mentioned on the left. That is not a good thing. The EU is not serving it in such a way. There's also a film that I could recommend to you. It's called The Pipe, and it goes back to when Ireland started the EEC in 1973. Jack Lynch did a deal with the EU bureaucrats in relation to agricultural money, and this is no problem, Jack, as long as you give us the fisheries. So look at in relation to all the money that's coming from EU, it's coming in relation to annuities for dairy farmers and other farmers, but the fisheries is not ours. We don't own within 5 miles of our own coastline. So talk to a fisherman about how good Europe is.
Okay.
Talk to a farmer about who Europe is. You get completely two different angles. But you raised the point there, John, in relation to culture. You know, Irish culture is a massive thing in relation to tourism. And we are a small island. And once we start acting like a small island, and don't think that we're the 51st state of America, which an awful lot of people in this country seem to think they are. But I'm one that will fight for my culture, my ancestry, and as long as Europe kind of appreciate and respect that, and we're not all part of one big economy, I'm talking about building a society. I couldn't give a Highlander fuck about an economy.
Okay.
Build a society first, and we're going places. Okay,
Johnny.
Sorry, Vanessa, if you don't agree with that there, but you know, maybe that's the whole crux of the program.
Olga, good evening. Welcome. You've missed the best birthday party.
Oh, whose birthday is it? Sorry.
You missed the best 50th. My God.
Oh, 50th. Sorry.
But it's all over now anyway.
Happy birthday.
Welcome. 50 shows.
Amazing, John. Fair play. Well done, lads.
Fair play to you.
Well, I'm always late, so I shouldn't.
Well, we've had great crack.
Have you? Yeah. Good stuff.
So you're at the Disclosures Tribunal, and the module ended today quite dramatically and weirdly.
Yeah, the module ended. Yeah.
I'm just going to do the papers, so I'll do the papers now.
Okay.
You discuss disclosures. I'll come back in about 5 minutes. Okay.
Okay.
So John Barrett was up this week, wasn't he? The head of HR at Garda.
John Barrett was up. Yeah, he was up the other day, and then he came back. So he was back again for further questioning. So this is the head of HR in the Guards, and he has claimed that he was told he claims that he was told by the Chief Administration Officer for the Guards, Cyril Dunn, that Cyril Dunn said to him, "We're going after him at the Commission." So this is Maurice McCabe. And so he reckons that this was said to him on May 13th, 2015, which is just the night before the first hearing of the Commission. But he's just kind of picked that date by looking at his emails because he made no note of it. He's no evidence of it. Cyril Dunn absolutely rejects it, says it never happened. So John Barrett gave evidence about that, and he was questioned pretty vigorously by Judge Charlton. And I suppose some people might argue, well, he's accusing Cyril Dunn of something, and maybe that's the way it should be. But I think everyone was quite taken back by the questioning. So then Cyril Dunn gave evidence today and yesterday, and he categorically denied that it ever happened. So that's kind of the upshot of that, essentially. So, but like I said, he's no notes or anything of it. Other people who gave evidence, so since last week, Noel Cunningham gave evidence, Colin Rooney gave evidence, and I think it's probably fair to say that there's evidence that just conflicts. A lot of stuff doesn't add up. If even just kind of in a nutshell, if you look at two documents that were produced to the Commission, they contained significant errors, if at best, or falsehoods at worst, let's say. And one of them was this Chief State Solicitor's letter that was given up the first weekend of the Commission on the Monday morning after the legal row on the Friday. And it's confusing because this Chief State Solicitor's letter was handed in with these wrong claims. And we've heard that Noel Cunningham gave his report of a meeting, which would contradict this document. And so this is important because it was this report about a meeting, it was this meeting that was the tape that Morris produced. So if those documents were contradicted each other, it's confusing as to why they went down this line of questioning regardless. And so that doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense because Noel Cunningham says he gave the report in, and he gave it to Anne-Marie Ryan. Anne-Marie Ryan said that she gave it into the Commission and that she gave it to McCabe's counsel, but McCabe's counsel, Michael McDougall, has categorically said that this never happened. So they're diametrically opposed, as we were saying during the week, on that point. And obviously that document, that Chief State Solicitor's letter, was really significant. Anyway, we'll just leave it at that. But then what's more confusing is that jump ahead a few weeks. So basically the tribunal didn't, or the inquiry or commission didn't sit between the 19th, after the 19th of May until the 24th of June. So there was a few weeks there. And the second document is this list of submissions that was given in to the commission. And this was given into the commission on June 11th, and they didn't sit until June 24th. And the thing is that what was in the letter from the start of May, from that May weekend, let's say, what was in that letter was kind of repeated in the submissions, and even went further in regards to this particular meeting with Noel Cunningham, where it said that evidence was going to come forward about this meeting to support the wrong claim that was in the submission and also in the letter. But it doesn't make sense, because if Noel Cunningham did give his report as he claims, but McCabe's counsel say never happened, why did his legal team pursue this line of questioning if there was a document to prove that it didn't? Well, there was a contradiction, there was so the fact that basically that allegation was maintained, if you like, if you can use that word, in the submissions, it doesn't make sense. And then we also heard this week that Noel Cunningham sent his report in a second time on June 5th or 7th, I think, just before the submissions were sent in, and yet the submissions were still incorrect. So that doesn't make any sense. Now, we only found that out because he waived privilege on this particular thing, and he said that he gave the document. He first said he gave the document to Anne-Marie Ryan, the same solicitor, in regards to handing in the report, and that and then we saw there was an email, and she had forwarded on to, it went to Fergus Healy first, and then to her, or Fergus Healy, and then her. I'm not too sure. So Fergus Healy would have been Noreen's liaison person, but either way, it didn't get into the submissions. The submissions weren't corrected. So it's just bizarre. It doesn't make sense. So, so those two, let's say, anomalies are even more strange when you consider how documents were just incorrect, but also the legal team for Noreen O'Sullivan and for the same guards were completely taken by total surprise, is the quote from Michael McNamee, the barrister, on June 24th, when the tape and the documents were kind of compared and contrasted, and it was a case of this doesn't add up. And then basically that just melted away. So that's really kind of paring it down, but it's just, and we still don't understand how these documents, who can take responsibility for the documents. The council maintained that they were told these instructions explicitly, they were given the wrong version, and the guards, Noel Cunningham, etc., they maintain that they weren't the source of this misinformation.
Okay, now just on this week, it seems that Charlton has been trying to establish that Noreen O'Sullivan did not, that the allegations of the paedophilia, this was key, wasn't it? I mean, this is what Charlton was sort of pressing.
So this is one of the terms of reference, and he had this kind of out with Francis Fitzgerald last week, where he was like, "Where did this come from?" Because he, from the very kind of get-go, actually, of this module, he said nobody in this room is claiming that anyone ever put it to or was going to put it to Morris at the commission. Did you abuse a child, right? And McDougall and McCabe's team, absolutely not. But to be honest, like I'm no, like I don't know how what everyone else thought, but I presumed after listening to all the Tusla stuff, I thought that the purpose for this module in relation to the false allegation and leaning on this false allegation or examining that possibility was that if there was a knowledge, or if there was a thought that this was a real allegation or a false allegation, was it just used like subtly but not explicitly? But you know, exactly, that's right. But it seems that because it wasn't explicitly said, then it's a case of, well, nobody thinks it, so we'll just kind of nullify it. But I think it's curious.
Martin's really stuck on that, isn't he? I mean,
he's repeated it several times.
But it's not entirely true, is it?
Well, the way I look at it is that Noreen O'Sullivan, and it's funny because this module is just in relation to one thing, but we forget what happened with Tusla. Like, we learned in the Tusla module that she was told in May 2014 that Morris, there was a false referral of rape came in, and she said in her evidence last week that she was never corrected on that. So she must have had some knowledge in her mind that it was a rape allegation. Well, I can't say that, but that's her evidence is that she was never corrected. So she had two conversations. So before there were ever consultations with Noel Cunningham and the legal people before the commission, before there was any of that, she would have had a conversation with her liaison officer, Fergus Healy, and that would have been when he was first appointed. And Fergus Healy, just coincidentally, was the superintendent in Cavan when the Miss D allegation first happened in 2007, right? So, or came about. So he wasn't involved in it, but he had an awareness of it. So he gave, in his evidence, he said that when he was appointed, when she asked him to do the job, he said to her, just to let you know, I was the superintendent in Cavan when this happened, blah, blah, blah. And apparently they had a conversation about it. That's what his evidence is. He also said that on May 14th, after the very first day of the O'Higgins Commission investigation, he had another conversation with her about, he was seeking instructions from her then, and that was in relation to what they were going to do. And he was saying to her, he said what he was saying to her was that Morris, our argument is that Morris changed, this is the cause of all these allegations, and that came out of him wanting the DPP's directions given to the D family, and that it was his, you know, he was angry because this didn't happen. The linchpin, that's what he said. But I can't understand how she could have had any kind of conversation about that regarding Miss D without thinking that it was a false rape allegation. You know, I don't understand. So that was always my understanding of that term of reference, but it's been, you know, and it hasn't been explored. Like, it hasn't even, like, Michael McDougall brought it up when he asked her, so you were never corrected, and she said no. And also the very first liaison officer for the O'Higgins Commission was a guy called, we said this before, Kieran Kenny. Yeah. And he's the person who sent on the fake or the false rape allegation to her and never sent on the amended one. So and she claims not to have picked up on that. She basically said it was the evidence of her private secretary last summer that, or Frank Walsh, that she had read it, And she kind of was like, she didn't, I don't think she explicitly said she couldn't remember, but she said that she accepts his evidence. But she did explicitly say that she was never corrected.
Right.
So I don't know how that can be kind of discounted. If her state of knowledge was she thought Maurice McCabe was accused of rape, does that make things different?
Well, of course it would. But Charlton this week then was very aggressive towards Barrett.
He was quite he was very, very, very firm, very, very stern, and just kind of, because I think because he had said something in evidence that turned out to be contradicted by the person he said was going to back him up, if you like, or verify it. Tony McLaughlin, Superintendent Tony McLaughlin. This is someone who Barrett said that he had said it to, that he had referred this. He said, "Oh, I was told this," but anyway, the sequence of events that Barrett laid out didn't materialize according to Tony McLaughlin's evidence, and Barrett said, fair enough, if that's what he says, he holds this Tony McLaughlin, Chief Superintendent Tony McLaughlin, in the highest regard. But Barrett was firm. He was like, look, and he was saying, look, I don't know, I can't explain it, I don't have any note, I don't, but this is the ugly truth, I think he said, or the dark truth or ugly truth. And so but Cyril Dunn absolutely denied it. But yeah, Charlton did really question him quite hard.
Yeah.
Cyril Dunn did not get that. But again, that could be because Cyril Dunn is the accused, maybe, and in that situation, and Barrett is the accuser. I don't know.
Okay. This module is over now.
This module is over, and so they'll do oral submissions on Tuesday, and that's just one of the things. Like, Morris hasn't given evidence yet, so. No. Which I think it's a bit of a pity, because I think there were kind of loose threads or hanging threads there that didn't kind of get like whack-a-mole, that game where that just weren't kind of sorted, I don't think. So maybe maybe he'll just give this stunning, performance when he gives his evidence, but his evidence won't happen until the first day of the next module, which I don't think is going to happen until March. I don't know if that's the case, but that's kind of what's been said. So
can I ask you about some of the, like, there's some journalists like crowing, delighted that there's a setback for Morris. What is going on there?
Well, I think it's the same journalists who've been reporting that there's nothing to see, so look, I don't know, I can't explain it, but I don't know them, but yeah, there's definitely, it's obvious, it's obvious to anyone following it, but I guess some of these journalists are journalists who might have possibly been pointed at by Dave Taylor as having been negatively briefed, and maybe they just are like, that didn't happen because or hitting back about that. Maybe they just didn't want to be dragged in. I don't know.
Well, yeah, I was wondering how they justified it to themselves. I mean, do they feel that the original allegations are true or something regarding the
Ms. D?
Yeah, I mean, like, do they feel that Maurice McCabe is some sort of evil genius trying to bring down the guards? Or,
I don't know. It's kind of mad because
he would seem to be the underdog in this situation by any stretch.
any stretch. Everything we've heard so far, even by the fact that he hasn't given evidence, it's because everything happened around him, over him, under him. Like, he didn't. He literally just. So.
And if he hadn't taped it, we wouldn't be here at all. If he hadn't taped that conversation. No,
we wouldn't. And despite best efforts of some people to say that's not the case, and even to go back to, not to laboriously go on about these two documents that I just focused on earlier, like this letter and the submissions, like Anne-Marie Ryan herself, the solicitor, herself and her evidence said, yeah, that was not a clerical error. She conceded that it wasn't a clerical error, and also that it wasn't just this to versus against error.
Yeah.
Which is which I think it's being kind of put out there in a lot of reports because it's the most simplest way to kind of sum it up, but it's a pity because it's not that simple. At least I don't think, yeah.
And so when is the next sitting then? It's not tomorrow, is it?
So Tuesday there'll be the oral submission. So that'll be interesting because it'll be a chance to see exactly how McCabe's legal team parse through everything that's been said to date, you know. But there's plenty of inconsistencies. It doesn't make sense. How can a team of barristers say we were told this, and the people who apparently were doing the telling say we never said that, or you know?
Yeah.
So, but they're doing a good job of. They're collectively all doing a good job, probably. You know that just to kind of show that, or to kind of argue that it's just chaos. You know.
Yeah. Well, I must say, thanks, Olga. Thanks for the tweeting. The McDougall Charlton clash sounded like serious handbags.
Yeah, I think that was the first time I ever saw them two, the Charlton and McDougall clash. Like you saw plenty of times during Keith Harrison's module between his barrister and Charlton, but it was the first time, that was seen.
Yeah, well, I mean, the barristers, the law library must be having a laugh about this because Colin Smith then was very upset, wasn't he?
He was a bit upset. Well, he was just adamant. He was like, "Look, you know,
I didn't say
we were given the wrong version. We were given the wrong version. We didn't see Noel Cunningham's report." See, this is what I was trying to say earlier. It was only when Noel Cunningham gave evidence that we heard he gave his report a second time in regards to the submissions in June, right? And so, but despite the fact that he gave his report and the submissions were entered, the submissions weren't changed. Like they weren't corrected, even though he gave in his report. So, and Colin Smith never saw the report. Like they were stunned come June 24th when that was all thrashed out. So it doesn't make sense. How can documents go to the solicitor and not get to the rest of the legal team? It just doesn't add up.
No.
And so, and in regards to Noreen O'Sullivan, you know, she definitely had a buffer. You know, she had Fergus Healy. She had no contact with the legal team until she had this private meeting with Colin Smith. So we don't know what happened there. You know, so yeah, there's a lot of loose threads, and we are working on a piece to kind of, you know, highlight the anomalies and stuff. But it'll just take a bit of time. But yeah,
it is confusing, but it's. I think we'll get to the truth of it.
Maybe.
Later. Vanessa.
Yeah.
How are you? Are we friends? Real friends? 50
Did
shows?
we fall out?
No. I mean, all of us. Like, and Johnny too. Johnny. 50 years or 50 shows. It just feels like 50 years. Neil, look, I put up 3 covers of papers tomorrow for the Irish papers. If you
I'll get them up. We should all go to see 50 Shades together. And see what about it. So, a little excursion, and we should live tweet. Olga can live tweet it.
It sounds like 50 Shades of Shady where Olga is down in Dublin Castle. Could I just say something that I picked up on that and excuse me, I'm always terrible with names, but the American police woman that
Kathleen O'Toole.
Yeah, didn't she recommend Noreen O'Sullivan for the post of Garda Commissioner?
Yeah,
and this kind of brings it back to Europe as well. Is Noreen O'Sullivan in a position that she could be in the European or the American police service?
Well,
as well, or
there's an association of chief police
superintendents.
Officers. Yeah, IACP, and Kathleen O'Toole was on the selection committee that decided Noreen would be the Garda Commissioner. She then went off to Seattle to be police chief. She was appointed then last year to lead up a review of Irish policing. even though she'd been part of the appointment of Noreen, and then Noreen resigns in September, and then she gets a job with the IACP, and who's on the executive committee? Kathleen O'Toole.
Yeah. And also, Olga, is McCabe going to give evidence, do you think?
Yeah, so that's it, Johnny. So like we all thought it would happen this week, but it turns out it didn't. It turns out he didn't, and we've just been told that he's not going to give evidence until the first day of the next hearing, the next module, and so that will be probably March. So I don't know why that's happened. Honestly, don't know why, but I think it's just so that he can just give evidence and kind of just get everything. But yeah, I'm not too sure why that's the case, but he's not going to give evidence until then. In a way, I think it's a bit, just personally, I think it's a bit of a pity because the kind of things that were left hanging didn't get really addressed maybe, or I don't know.
Well, I think Morris will he gets his day.
Yeah, he will. And like they can go through it forensically and slowly and take their time, and address everything in their own time. Yeah.
Thanks, Olga.
Sorry, Luke.
Yep.
Have you been following the tribunal?
Really, just through Olga.
Yeah.
What she's been updating us with. Yeah, I mean, it seems bizarre, fascinating. Surreal, I mean, like it's sort of like if you were the type that was given to conspiracy theories, you'd find yourself thinking long and hard about that one, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you would really. I mean, I mean, it's not much of a stretch really to say that.
That's it. I mean, what I'm saying is that basically.
It's not lizards.
Yeah, no, it's just like it's stuff that shouldn't be happening, and it's a good illustration of what seems to be a sort of deeper malaise, like just a little sort of the notes within it of people sort of randomly picking files off shelves and all this sort of stuff. I mean, it makes a farce of the whole thing, and therefore implies there's something wrong.
Yeah. Oh yeah, collectively, but Neil tells me that everything's grand up to Phoenix Park. Neil, the papers there, are they? Neil. Hello.
They're on screen now. They're on screen now.
Okay. Tribunal to check if Gardaí went after McCabe.
Yeah, I'm just looking at that there. So it's by Ger Cunningham. So Ger is in there every day. He's a freelance journalist, and he's been reporting on it every day for a lot of papers, all paper, journal, everyone. But
Paduda, is he?
Paduda, yeah, on Twitter, yeah. So the chairman of the Disclosures Tribunal said he would have to consider if there was evidence of a dark truth that the former Garda Commissioner Noreen O'Sullivan or other senior officers were going after Sergeant McCabe. So this is what I was saying about Cyril Dunn. This is the claim. Yeah. Charlton said he would also consider if the premise that Miss O'Sullivan relied inappropriately on unjustified ground to discredit a Garda whistleblower was based on leaks and conjecture. So I wasn't there. I had to leave at 2:30. But when after I left, he was speaking at the end of it, and he basically listed off these 11 questions, and some of them were quite startling. But I think he was kind of laying them out for all the councils ahead of their submissions to say, okay, well, this is what you have to address to me. So maybe he's looking for, okay, I really want you all to come out guns blazing and, convince me whichever way. Because Morris didn't have his day yet. So maybe that's why. But there is this, he would also consider the premise that if Noreen O'Sullivan relied inappropriate and unjustified grounds to discredit Garda whistleblowers was based on leaks and conjecture. So the 11 questions, he said the first issue was whether false allegations of sexual abuse had been relied upon by the Garda Commissioner. He said that everyone seems to be agreed that there weren't. And this is what he's repeated repeatedly. Yeah. And McDougall for McCabe has said, no, we never expected anyone to, or we never sought to argue that it was ever put to McCabe that, did you abuse a child? But like I said earlier, I never thought of it like that personally. I thought it was going to be know it was something in the background that was.
Yeah.
But I think it's really telling. She has said herself that no one ever corrected her. So her state of knowledge. Anyway, I've said it already. But
Okay.
and then he said the question remained whether any other unjustified grounds were inappropriately relied upon by the commissioner. Well, you could argue, I mean, given we know what documentation was used and that it was either by error or whichever, that seems to me like that was unjustified grounds personally, because it wasn't correct. Whether it was used inappropriately or there was something else, that's, I suppose, what he's to look at. In considering this, the chairman said he would have to consider were the limits appropriate in cross-examining witnesses and whether there was evidence the commissioner intended to challenge the credibility of witnesses in an ordinary way. He also said he would have to consider whether a letter setting out the Garda Commissioner's legal position in May 2018 was a mistake.
Okay.
Legal position in 2018, I think that's an error. 2018 was a mistake because we haven't got to May 2018 yet. Sorry, was a mistake, an uncorrected mistake that was allowed to stay in an inaccurate form due to recklessness or perhaps inadvertence, or was it deliberate?
Okay. Thanks, Saga. Neil, is there a the Sun is there? Is it the Irish Sun? I think is the only one in the Examiner Sport.
Yeah, it's doing the loading thing. We've got the Examiners. Do you want the Examiners? We'll go to the Sun.
I don't know unless. Oh yeah. Okay, that's the Grandad. Who's that fellow there? The football, or is it GA player? Vanessa, is that?
That looks like Conor O'Shea, is it?
He'll turf me out. Fine, not a problem. What's that? I'll be judged on it. Who's he now? He seems like a GA fellow, is he?
I'm not the expert on the panel here at all this evening, so ask somebody else. But it looks like Conor O'Shea to me.
It's Conor O'Shea who is now the captain or the manager of the Italian rugby team who Ireland are playing this weekend. And he's thought to be the guy who's going to sort of revolutionise Italian rugby. I mean, he's got results everywhere he's gone before, and he seems very committed. He's moved to Italy and is apparently speaking Italian.
Oh, was he a scrum half?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Full back, I think.
Full back, Johnny. Yeah, that's great, isn't it? Has Neil gone? There,
Neil is here.
Well, it is now 11:58, and this is our 50th show. I really want to thank everybody on the panel, and also the viewers and people who've been watching the shows over the last year.
Before we go, John.
Yeah.
Before you give your speech to the troop.
No. There's no speech.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay.
Oh no, give us a speech.
I was just going to say, before you give your speech, John, you should ask the panel what their highlight of the 50 episodes has been, be it one they've been on or one they've been watching.
Okay, Johnny, your highlight of the last 50 shows.
Well, put me on the spot now. I can't give you one. There's been so many. Like, we've already had a few tonight. So, and my short-term memory, is kind of like, I like the way that we don't talk enough about rural affairs, and I know it's been passed over again. And the big week, there's billions being fenced for Ireland. I suppose it's the start of the Fine Gael manifesto, but there could be an awful lot more money being pushed into rural Ireland, and if we talked a little bit more about that, that would be a highlight for me to think about talking.
Okay.
But as I said, there've been so many highlights down to the last 50.
A future highlight then will be we'll get onto that. Luke, it's been a highlight having you on, basically, for me.
Well, like the Christmas special was my highlight, definitely. Because I remember that particular day. I had a lot on and I was busy, and I wasn't actually going to join you, but I found myself in contortions of laughter between everything that was going on, and I thought, well, I have to get in on this, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, we like from tonight, you wouldn't have guessed that we are. We're
We're all friends. We're all friends.
Olga, any highlights of the last year?
Well, I was going to say the exact same one. I wasn't on the Christmas one, but I really enjoyed watching it back. It was hilarious. It was so.
Well, we had two
funny.
Christmas ones. You were at one of the Christmas ones.
The one for John's birthday.
Yeah.
Yes. I was late to that too. But the other Christmas one was really funny. You were all really, really funny.
And Vanessa, and I promise I won't interrupt. What's been your highlight of the last year?
I think the show starting, actually. I think pushing it up, going for it and pushing it up from the first one, really. That's the highlight.
Yeah.
That's not about me at all.
Okay. Oh God.
Okay. Well, on that.
Well, John, I think if you put the 50 shows in context in relation to what was discussed, and Darrell Quigley was a big one, but I think we've really got to the meat of serious issues, and I don't think there's anyone out there that touches on them as honestly and frankly and emotionally to a certain degree an awful lot of the time. So I think we're all doing very well in relation to contributing, and long may this show continue, because it's a much needed platform for people
And
of all persuasion.
thank you, Johnny. And we hope to make it a bit more interactive in terms of reading from the mosh pit or from the chat pit, and
What was your favorite, John? What was your favorite show?
My favorite thing is just the excitement of that we can like do it, and I mean, it might not be great, or it might be great, or whatever, but the fact that we can do it without having to, I don't know, go to RT and ask them to use their cameras, So thank you very much, and thanks to all the.
I haven't given mine, John. I haven't given mine. God, that's very great.
Oh yeah. Sorry.
Dublin people.
Yeah, that's good.
Sorry, Neil. Please.
And well, actually, I would have said the Christmas specials, both of them. I think it was lovely to have everyone in the same room, and everyone brought cakes and sweets, which none of the viewers give a shit about. But it was nice to have that here. It was a bit of love in the room, a bit of free love, as Johnny would say. But the other one I wanted to point out, and Johnny kind of beat me a bit to it. Back in the early days, and I was a day oneer myself, but the time when we lost Dara Quigley, I thought there was some. Johnny said some lovely things, because neither myself or Johnny would have known Dara, and Johnny said some lovely words about, if you remember the time, Johnny, you had done a little bit of reading about Dara and her work, and you said some lovely words on one of the episodes about it. I thought that was quite nice. So.
Well, Neil, I don't know exactly what you do, but you're a great producer. I don't know.
I produce.
You're a minimalist producer. You don't say. I don't even feel like I'm being produced.
That's the secret to good producing. Just keep writing the checks, John. Keep writing the checks.
So to Johnny Keenan in Kilkenny, Luke Brennan in Porto, Portugal, Neil Curran in Dublin, Olga Cronin, fresh from a shift in Dublin, Vanessa Foran, glum, a little glum, but
No, I'm not glum. I don't throw tantrums, John. I don't even lose my temper.
The temper tantrum-free Vanessa Foran in Dublin. Thank you very much to everybody. Hope to see you on the site tomorrow or here next Thursday. Good night. Thank you. Happy 50th.